Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Tom Dutta. Hey, that's Tom Dutta like butter. I was just saying to my guest who's in the green room that the last 3 days have been an extravaganza of theatrical shows. The live show Beetlejuice, the live show Three Musketeers, and now I have another theatrical spectacular with Dr. Amelia Kelley, who's been here before, but she's in the green room looking great as usual. Learned that in a podcast search engine, I believe it's called Notes Review or Listening Notes, our podcast now is ranked in the top 5% globally for its downloads and watches. I had no idea until a publicist who sent a guest to me said, "Hey, did you know?" And it's only because of you. So thank you very much. Everybody, let me tell you a bit about Dr. Amelia Kelley. First of all, she was with us a couple months ago talking about another book that she has, Suicidal Ideation. It was a great show. You can go back and find that one. In that show, you'll hear a lot about her backstory. Today, we're featuring the 2.0 of that, a couple more books that she's written. A little bit about her. You can go to ameliakelley.com to find out her full biography. She's a trauma-informed therapist, also co-host of the Sensitivity Doctors podcast. I think now she's the host, researcher, certified meditation and yoga instructor. She specializes in art therapy, internal family systems, things like EMDR, brain spotting, and it's even broader than that. Her work focuses on women's issues, but also empowering not just women, but men, focusing on things like survivors of abuse and relationship trauma. Highly sensitive people. I appeared on her podcast and talked a lot about highly sensitive men, which, by the way, blew my mind. Go to see that episode. We've been getting some good feedback on that. She lives near Raleigh, North Carolina. There's several books she's written. We'll talk about that on the show. And I wrote to her before the last show and said, "Why are you a good fit for the narrative of the hero's journey?" And she said, "My life approach is failing forward, Tom. My greatest successes have come from failures." And she talked about the evolution of creating a family, 8 years of heartache and fertility struggles that led to exploring trauma therapy, which has uncovered years of her generational traumas from being the granddaughter of refugees from Ukraine. And it's informed her life work. Truly somebody who has a purpose behind what she's doing. Last thing she told me is, "I believe strongly in the power of a growth mindset, ability to speak up for oneself. I've been a result of living in the world as a highly sensitive person myself, who's being called sometimes too much or too emotional." Sounds like I'm writing to myself there. So everybody, let's bring her on. Dr. Amelia, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm looking down because I'm sharing your link live on my Instagram so people can come find us. Come find us. I'm saying come find us right now.
That's awesome. Well, you're definitely
caught me.
I did, and that's a first. So that's a first for the show, and it's a great thing. You're everywhere. You're on all the social feeds, and your platform is, I've been watching it, is incredible.
Thank you.
We're coming back again. By the way, what's the weather like over where you're at today?
It's pretty hilarious you ask, because this is not the first but second snow day that we've had. So I'm from upstate New York, and we currently have on the ground maybe a 1/10 of an inch of snow.
Yeah.
And yet we are on day 2 of no school. So chilly, but it's fine.
And there you are. And the total professional and multitasking, because I know the family's involved. I've got to tell you, West Coast here, it's bright, sunny, and beautiful. It's -2 degrees, so 2 degrees below freezing.
Wow.
But that's mild. But we haven't had snow. We've had almost like summer-like conditions. So here we are back in Plato's garden. Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period. If you're watching us live, you'll see on the screen there, kind of looks like Plato and Aristotle. They're hanging out, they're talking, and the founder of the Platonic school of thought. And today what we're going to do is what we did last time with Dr. Amelia. We're going to talk about 3 different areas: macro, which is the global world around what she's doing; mezzo, which is the sector of the industry that she works in with her public work; and then micro, which is all about her. Everybody, this is called critical thinking. And if you connect the dots through all these areas with what she's going to talk about, you might find deeper meaning in her work. one of the things I want to do, Dr. Amelia, is just put up on screen here an image and get you to tell us what we're looking at.
Well, I was going to say 2.5, 3 of my books.
Yeah. So I'll pull that off. Hold up the physical books and just read out the titles for us.
Okay. So the books we're here to talk about today is Gaslighting Recovery for Women, which I'm sure we'll also chat about the impact on men as well. And then I was joking to you that my publisher continues to send me like internationally published books of it. So I have the Japanese version, which is super cute, but also read backwards. And I will say
That's
it's super
crazy.
fun. It's fun seeing, I'm trying to find one that has the illustration where like things that I've created are like done, but in a different language. So that's fun. And then I joke that I got this one and I have no idea what language it is.
Yeah, you know what? I can't help you on that one.
No idea. If anyone knows, actually, yes, if anyone knows.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that cover is the way they've broken the word up. So even looking at it like that creates some evocative thinking. Let me throw on the screen something else just to get us all into this conversation. Here, I was wondering what AI said in terms of defining these two topics. So I'm just going to put it up there for fun, everybody. It'll be left in the production. I'll read it out loud, and then we're going to just get into some dialogue on your books. This is what ChatGPT said: ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, common condition that affects how a person pays attention, stays focused, and controls their impulses. Imagine your brain is like a TV with multiple channels. Someone with ADHD has a hard time staying on one channel for too long. Sometimes the volume of energy feels cranked up. People with ADHD might struggle to sit still, focus on tasks, or follow through the plans. Even if they really want to, it's not about being lazy or careless. It's about how the brain processes attention activity. ADHD can show up in different ways. Some people are very easily distracted. Some are very active and impulsive, hyperactive, and some have a mix of both. So now you tell us, what is the real meaning of that?
That's so intriguing. I'm sitting here because I'm like, I've never looked up AI's version. And I should also, I guess, pop this book up too. So the other book we're talking about, of which I was
hold it up a bit more. I'm going to full screen it so I can see the. Great. Read the title to us.
Powered by ADHD, Strategies and Exercises for Women to Harness Their Untapped Gifts. And again, if you notice, both of these are centered on women. However, I really love in the work that I do in, my podcast and kind of my platform to make sure that I appeal to everyone. But there are some nuances with women that are very interesting and we should definitely touch on. But so as far as ADHD, I'm not saying AI is wrong. I just think it paints a little bit of a kind of an anti-ableist vision, I would say. So here's the thing with ADHD. There's a misunderstanding that it has to do with hyperactive external presentation. The hyperactivity, it's interesting to note, is actually in the way that the brain mechanisms don't orchestrate and turn off and on at times that they are meant to. So it's the hyperactivity is when too much of the brain is firing. And the interesting thing is that adding stimulation to the hyperactive brain helps certain parts of the brain turn off so other parts can turn on. So it's almost
interesting.
Yeah. So it's almost kind of an opposite thing. You increase stimulation to decrease activity. But very specifically, what AI did not say is that it is a neurobiological disorder that has to do with how the brain develops. And so the ADHD brain generally takes a little bit longer to reach full maturation. And sometimes you'll see some differences in the depth in the prefrontal cortex, which is where executive functioning lies.
Yeah.
And for anyone wondering, I used to scratch my head at executive functioning. That would be an interesting thing to AI. Like, what is executive functioning?
Sure.
The way I describe it simply is that anything you want to accomplish, whether it be putting your laundry away, making that phone call, or being able to listen in a conversation, you've got the desired behavior, and then you have the execution of the behavior. Everything in between the two is where the executive functioning is.
I see. Interesting. So having been through a bit of a brain recovery from a concussion, as you know, I learned a lot about executive function. You know, I have some friends actually who they go online and they think like this term ADHD is thrown around out there. And I'm curious how people get properly diagnosed. There's one way, you know, younger people, a lot of them I talk to, they go and use these online questionnaires and things. I tend to wonder, maybe I'm a little skeptical about that. And then a real life experience, Dr. Amelia. Last night I mentioned the Three Musketeers. I went to see a live theatrical play. And the day before, 2 hours watching the new Beetlejuice Broadway show. And I'm sitting in the audience, and honestly, there's so much going on stage, but I believe that this may be something I struggle with because I just couldn't stay focused. And then afterwards, I was thinking about, did I really lean in, and what was my retention and all these things? I'm going to just throw something out here for us to riff on. By the way, have you experienced ADHD yourself in your own life?
So it's interesting because when I look at the trajectory of my life, I probably wouldn't have been someone who ever would have qualified. You know what I mean? Like the external behaviors were not present. But as I have dug more into how it presents in women, and I have recognized my intense coping mechanisms that I have used for a long period of time, absolutely positively, I meet some of the criteria actually for hyperactive type, which I think is part of what makes me appear extroverted at times. But all I've done is what any adult could do. And this is actually to your point. If you're seeking specific treatment, if you do want to, for instance, try medication, or you want to have someone who is like deeply engaged in your treatment and you want that diagnosis, and or you're looking for accommodations, whether it be at work, whether it be in school, proper full diagnosis will happen in a medical setting where scales such as the adult scale, the adult self scale for ADHD, which actually I just had a client do this morning. It's a really easy assessment. You can find it online, the ASRS, I want to say something like that. Yeah. I might actually look that up. I might be misquoting the acronym. But so you can start with those things. I do think it's good to start with some self-reflection, and actually in my ADHD book, I have an altered assessment that kind of gives you real life examples as opposed to just general examples, because I thought that'd be helpful to have a little different version of the assessment. Once you have that, it's helpful and important to go to a provider, if you so choose, who can look at the full scope. How does this show up in, relationships, family, home? There's an old notion that it needs to show up in all areas.
Right.
I at this point in my career and in my practice, I disagree.
Interesting.
Because if there's an area of your life you're deeply interested and you get more dopamine release, some of the ADHD symptoms won't be as glaring or present, because you're able to get into flow more easily as someone with ADHD.
Interesting. Flow. My like aunt or uncle flow. Here's everyone. I'm so blessed. I'm going to just get full screen a little bit here. I'm so blessed because I actually received both the books we're going to talk about. So thank you for that. Hard to see here, but page number 17 onward, ADHD self-assessment. If you suspect you have symptoms of ADHD, this can help to complete the following assessment based on diagnostic, blah, blah, blah. So everybody get this book, get into it, do the self-assessment, and then reach out with somebody like Dr. Amelia who can actually have that conversation. Let me just throw this out. Let's assuming what you just told us, that you associate with some of these characteristics for yourself. Let's go into micro, which is a personal question. Your work is rooted in deeply personal experiences as well as with your clients. So share a moment when you realize that your ADHD, or perhaps a story from one of your clients, that the challenges faced were not limitations, but gifts to be harnessed. And how did that moment or those moments shape your path?
Well, I think I could talk about clients all day long about this, but I might actually go for it, be a little more vulnerable and talk about myself.
Awesome.
Two things. I think one of them had to do with finding my life purpose, and then one of them had to do with dealing with stress. So when I think back on, school, for example, I was fine. I did okay. I was, A minus, B plus student. There were certain things that I struggled a lot in, like foreign languages, forget about it. Social studies, when did the First World War happen? Like that. I'm just like,
I don't know. When did it happen?
early
1914 or
1900s.
something
I
like that.
don't know. Yeah, exactly. I am not your best friend for trivia, like for generalized trivia.
Yeah.
And, I think in a way I leaned really a lot further into like arts and then also my relationships and my friendships because that's where I felt good. Whereas I felt kind of like mediocre when it came to school. But here's the thing, a lot of people misunderstand. They think that people who are neurodiverse, like if I have ADHD, how could I be so accomplished?
Yeah.
There is some, I'm not saying that about myself. I'm saying in general, like a person saying that.
And then clarify what neurodiverse means just for our audience.
Sure. So neurodiversity is a theory of looking at the human brain as things like autism spectrum disorder, high sensitivity, which I definitely fall in that category. And then things like attention deficit disorder and traumatic brain injury falls in that category. So it is looking at the brain as not deficit and not something that is disordered, but something that is a deviation, just a different presentation.
I see.
I would beg to say we don't have a 50-50 split in our world, to be honest. You look at the stats, you've got 30% HSPs roughly in our human population. You've got up to about 8% ADHD in the adult population, over closer to 10 in the children population. You've got somewhere between 3 to 5% ASD. And then you look at medical stuff and trauma. I would be shocked if the person you meet is not 50% likely to be neurodiverse. So I suspect we're going to keep moving down this path and find out that there's a whole lot more neurodiversity than we think.
Yeah. Just on that point about 8%, 10% adult and children, is there any reason for the difference between the two?
Sure is. Yep. So, and this is like the highest statistics I've seen, by the way. So I have seen numbers lower where they say 5% for adults, 8% for children. I just want to put that out there. Depends on your source. But there are studies out there that show that children who are in stressful environments or traumatic environments, kind of like you were saying, the ACE scale, adverse childhood, more stressful environments, and also present with higher motor activity. So more of that like positive presentation of hyperactivity are more likely not to, quote, kind of grow out of ADHD symptoms as their brain develops.
That's interesting to me, for sure.
But there's a little bit of correlation between highly supportive, low stress environments where there's not the hyper motor activation, where some individuals will age out of being kind of classified as highly ADHD. But this is just a marginal amount.
So going back to that hyperactivity, how does the world we live in, where there's these smartphones and computer games, and I walk into a restaurant now and I'm sitting at a table having dinner. I look over and there's the parents, and then they've got the two young children. They've got devices in their hands. Keep yourself busy. The world's changed, right? With all that technology, does that play into the ADHD at all, or is that a myth?
So I'm going to take that and put it on the shelf for a second, just to finish answering your question about how it showed up for me, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Because what I do think this is a helpful thing for people who suspect that they might have some form of neurodiversity. What I discovered was that when I finally got zeroed in on something I was super passionate about, which is this, like anything related to psychology, self-help, empowerment, and writing also. Yeah. So I went from an average student, very average student, to, I'm not saying this to be like grandiose. I'm saying this to be factual. By the time I hit grad school, I was a 3.9. By the time I hit my doctoral program, I had a 4.0 the whole time.
That's remarkable.
But that's what I'm saying. Obviously, there was something going on where if we just stay stuck in what is difficult for us and what we think other people expect we should be doing, we don't get to necessarily live out our strengths of our diverse brains and see where they can go.
Okay, I want to riff on this with you. This is storytelling, everybody. Dr. Amelia Kelley here. Hold up that book again. Let's give it a plug.
I'm like, I have like piles now in front of me.
ADHD.
Mhm.
Powered by ADHD. There you go.
Yep. And I do have a Portuguese version somewhere.
I find this very interesting because, for example, I'm right now involved in university doing a program, and I'm extremely interested in it, and it's connected to the purpose of something important to me. So I can focus, I can lean in.
Yep.
There's other things that I do where I find myself very scattered and I'm not leaning in and focused. So I think you've given us a gift. Everybody listen back to that little piece. It's a learning there, and then step back. What is your focus? Ask yourself the question. Let's get back into the book. Why did you write it, by the way, this book? And talk just for a moment about how it's structured, because I saw it as a bit of a tool, a workbook, something that is not just a typical book.
Right. Well, and it was intended that way. You know, it's intended to be bite-sized so that the ADHD brain will remain interested, and we can really, you want to create a little sense of break and urgency for the ADHD brain. Like you want a little pressure. That's why sometimes people with ADHD perform better when they procrastinate first.
Yes.
And so that was the structure. But what I found was that when you looked at the research on ADHD in women specifically didn't really start until the early 2000s. Lots of reasons why.
Give us one, because that's the first question. Why?
I mean, focus and funding. You know,
really?
if the focus wasn't there, if the misunderstanding and the myths around ADHD also, because classically hyperactivity was seen as a hallmark for identifying ADHD, and then all the executive functions that came from that. And we know that this is something that presents a bit more in young boys. It does present in young girls as well, but ADHD can look very different in young girls. I mean, it can look like internalized flight of thought. It can look like insecurity. It can look like things that feel like anxiety. It can look like masking behaviors. It presents so differently in girls. And I think it was honestly more difficult to detect. It took people to challenge the status quo to identify it.
Well, that's fascinating. A nugget, the 2000s. So tell us about, so you self-assess, you go talk to somebody, and you have this characteristic or traits or whatever you refer to. How do you deal with that? What are some of the strategies in the book you talk about?
Well, there's a lot of really amazing ways to live, I say, a fulfilled life as someone with ADHD. I have a group that I do every other Thursday with women, specifically that was kind of born from the book. And a lot of what we do is we'll bring up a topic, say it's struggling with task completion. You have to start looking at the way that your unique brain functions at its best. So for someone who is neurotypical or who doesn't have ADHD, they may do really well with a to-do list on their fridge. Okay. So someone with ADHD, however, may be a little bit more likely to struggle with decision fatigue because they already have a flight of thought process going at a more active rate throughout the day. So they see that to-do list and it just causes freeze response, you know, and this is not for everyone. I'm just giving an example. So for the ADHD brain, it may be better to block out your day, for example, or it may be better. I always give the advice of scheduling your tasks as if they are appointments on your calendar, because we're much more likely to show up to an appointment than we are that random plan we had to clean out our fridge at 1:00.
Yeah. If you open up my calendar, that's exactly how it looks.
Awesome.
And I was actually taught that going back years in my career when I became the high level leader, like a CEO. I had a coach, but that's what they taught us. And what you also find is, for everybody who knows about high level leaders, you lose control over your time. So you have an assistant who's booking you, and you have teams that you're responsible, and your whole world feels like it. So there was times where I felt ADHD was applicable to me. Scheduling organizers, that's an interesting strategy. Let's get into another definition. Can I just throw this on the screen? Take a
Please.
bit of a right turn now, because everyone, we're covering off 2 topics today. This is what AI says about gaslighting. So let's just shift right into that for a minute. Gaslighting, when I heard the term, I didn't get it, but it's a form of psychological manipulation where someone tries to make you doubt your own thoughts, feelings, or memories. It's like if you know you left your keys on the table, but someone keeps insisting you didn't, making you question yourself. Over time, gaslighting can make a person feel confused, anxious, unsure of what's real. The person doing the gaslighting might deny things they've said or done, twist facts, or make you feel like you're overreacting. If it's often used to gain control or power over someone by breaking down their confidence and trust in themselves. Before we get back to you, there's another book here. Let's hold it up together in stereo. So
again, my piles.
there it is.
You have that one. I'll do this one.
Okay. Oh yeah, the one you don't know what it means.
The one of which language I have no idea it is, or this one.
Oh yes. Read the title off mine, by the way, just so they can hear your voice.
So, Gaslighting Recovery for Women: The Complete Guide to Recognizing Manipulation and Achieving Freedom from Emotional Abuse.
So tell us the real definition. I mean, I think that term's overused. It actually bugs me. I hear it a lot also in politics, the media. Oh, they're gaslighting. And I don't think many people understand what it really means. So give us your general version of its definition, and then I want to ask you something about it.
Sure. Well, I don't think, again, AI was wrong, but I think there were a couple things that were left out. First and foremost is that it is a form of emotional abuse as at its core. And yes, born out of manipulating someone's perception of reality. Another thing that AI had left out was that it can also be done to groups. So it's not necessarily just a one-on-one situation. It can be done, to your point, you said politics is a good example. It can be done to a mass group. It can be done to a gender, which is why Gaslighting Recovery for Women focused on women, because women have been classically more targeted. Not always. We can unpack that. But I think a big thing to remember with gaslighting is that, to your point about what it's not, it is not a disagreement. It is not a different opinion. It is not a misremembering. You know, you remember it this way, I remember it this way because we have different filters. Instead, it's intended to control and change and manipulate someone for the benefit of the person who is employing the tactic.
Interesting. Do you think people who do that, do you think they're doing it intentionally, or can it be where some people are, maybe they're sick or not emotionally well, and they just are doing that and they don't know it? Can it be a blind spot?
It can be both. I get asked this question a lot, but I want to be clear about the harm that either can have and how I term the two. Yeah. So I term the two as subconscious versus malicious. Okay. So subconscious gaslighting will look similar to, and I think a lot of people probably are subconscious gaslighters, but their level of harm varies. So an example of subconscious gaslighting that I often bring up is substance abuse, where someone is, has relapsed or they're engaged in addiction and they want to protect themselves, not get in trouble, not disappoint their partner. And so, someone finds an empty bottle in the garage and they say, "What is this?" And the gaslighter, "I don't know where that came from." So that's this form of self-protection. I don't know if it's necessarily, I think this is the distinction. The subconscious gaslighting is as harmful. However, the intention may not be to necessarily control and harm. The intention may be a bit more to self-protect. But that still does not mean you need to put up with it. It doesn't mean that it can't still negatively impact you. And it doesn't mean that it shouldn't change. The one distinction, however, is with subconscious gaslighting, sometimes it is safe to bring up the gaslighting to that person because they may be a little bit more likely to admit that they've done it or to work on it. However, with malicious gaslighting, it is normally not healthy or safe to bring it up to them because, as I say, they speak a different language. This is like a different emotional language. Some malicious gaslighters don't intentionally know they're doing it, but they know they want control. Like they
Oh
may
yeah.
not necessarily say, you know what, I'm going to get control over this group or this person by gaslighting them. Instead, their thought process may be more, well, I'm not going to admit to that because that makes me look like the bad guy and I'm not the bad guy. This person is. And it's this constant lack of awareness and insight that drives a lot of malicious gaslighting.
Yeah. Wow. So deep there. Everybody, just ask yourself this question now, because you've got me thinking this way. Think about someone, everyone, that you could say fits into this category, somebody who is a gaslighter. Put that image in your mind, and particularly for the women who are watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Dr. Kelley, I'm going to throw something out back in Plato's Garden here, a thought that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So you've helped countless women break free from what I'm going to say, use the word emotional abuse through this work on gaslighting recovery, the books there. Was there a specific turning point in your career where you felt this focus was your life calling? And if I am a woman or somebody with you now, how are you going to help me?
So I have to grab another book because so my very first book I ever co-wrote and really ever wrote was What I Wish I Knew, Surviving and Thriving After an Abusive Relationship. And I co-wrote this with Kendall Ann Combs.
Yes.
Beautiful, brave woman who shared her story of getting out of an abusive relationship in which she was almost killed in. I mean, this was a very serious domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
In writing the book, at the very same time that you're in Canada, correct?
Correct.
Right. I'm not. You know where I am.
Yes.
At the very same time that our political climate was getting real hot was the same time that I was writing this book. So there was this collision of our collective society experiencing gaslighting and it being labeled and named, the book being written, me hearing her story, and then discovering the term and some of the work that like Stephanie Sarkis has done, for example. And all of a sudden I realized this message of self-empowerment that I've been trying so much to lean into and get out into the world because it means a lot to me to be able to speak up for yourself. It's not about talking about self-empowerment only. It's about talking about why you need self-empowerment. And I believe gaslighting is an example of why we need self-empowerment, because the more capable and self-assured you are, the more you speak up, the more you recognize if you're being gaslit in the first place in the early stages of a relationship, the more people that won't have to go through the harrowing experience that she did. So this was like a collision of, as soon as this book was done, What I Wish I knew that was my next mission.
Wow.
And the irony is that gaslighting recovery for women came out, I want to say 2 months after it became Webster Dictionary's word of the year, which was wild. So,
hey, let's celebrate on that one. There's a new fact. I didn't know that. Man, just think about our society, everyone. How can that word be the word of the year? That's crazy. I'm holding in my hand here. I'll just jump in and riff on this for a minute. I'm holding your book in my hand here, and there's several things in it that it almost appears that, again, it's written as a workbook and a tool. Can I ask you, going back to what you said about gaslighting, women have been more targeted. Is there any, is it weighted also? Do certain races tend to show this more? We know about the gender piece, but what about by race?
Absolutely. Basically, any marginalized group is more likely to be targeted, because when you have a group or a person who's trying to be marginalized, even if you think of an abuser trying to ostracize or isolate their target from the rest of the family or the rest of the tribe. Okay. So anytime you have a person or an entity that is trying to sustain power, one of the most powerful ways to do that is with gaslighting. And so we look at, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that women couldn't vote. It wasn't that long ago that we couldn't have our own credit cards. It wasn't that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that long ago. And so it was much more likely that women, and I've brought this up before, medical gaslighting, one of the terms connected to that is being hysterical.
Really?
Do you realize that hysterical is based off of medical complications of the female reproductive system? Hysteria,
No idea.
hysterectomy. Are we seeing all these connections?
Yeah, no,
It's pretty
for sure.
wild.
That is wild. My goodness. Chapter 1 of the book, I'm just holding it here in the studio again, is about what is gaslighting. So we've kind of talked about that, the origin. Just comment on this case study. So you've got several case studies in here. Explain why, or just so people can get a picture of what that is.
Like why the case studies were in there?
Yeah.
Which case study or any of them?
Any of them. Just in general, you wrote the book with case studies. How's that helpful for somebody who
I was like ready to get my book out and like get to the case study.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to put you on the spot because I look like case study number 2, the narcissistic abuser, coming from the business environment. I hear the word narcissist. That's page number 33.
Here we are.
But while you're looking that up, I'm just going to say that, what comes into mind is where I come from, the business. I spend, you spend half your life in business. You hear this term a lot about bosses or people who are overseeing others. He's a narcissist. She's a narcissist. Anyway, you've thrown case studies in here. How does that all work to help us?
So I wanted people to see like real life examples of how gaslighting can be a little bit less detectable than we think. That if you look at these studies very closely, each and every one of them has a very subtle level of gaslighting. And my intention behind that was because the example that AI gave, someone moved your keys, I didn't move your keys. That's tactile. It's obvious. It's something that's so glaringly in front of you. But a lot of gaslighting doesn't look like that or feel like that. And that's why it's powerful. The more subtle it is sometimes, especially in the beginning stages, the more effective it can be, because the less you detect it, the more the gaslighter can continue to erode your sense of self and your self-esteem and slowly pile on tactics on top of tactics until your reality is their reality.
Interesting. So if I come into a room and I sit down with you and I don't really know much about gaslighting, how do you, I don't know if the right term is diagnose it, but how do you draw that out, or how do you know that that's something I might be experiencing, or how do you get me to identify it?
Well, I will tell you, as a therapist who works with folks like this a lot, I take my time. Okay. So I'm really going to listen, not just to the kind of the key moments of an interaction, but I'm really paying attention to how much the person feels like they get to have their own opinion, how much they get to speak up, how much they're able to connect with their inner dialogue. If someone starts to doubt what they know to be true, I will be more likely to have them pause and say, okay, can we double back and fact check this a little bit? I think fact checking is really important. So much so that I put a whole chart for it in this book.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not histrionic or hysterical to fact check. It's actually quite smart. And to me, if what I'm hearing is so flagrantly mismatching with how the person is feeling or what they believe, that's to me a sign that we need to take a closer look.
I see. Interesting.
Or if they're always being devalued and minimized. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
If every single argument and conflict is their fault, and the other person never is at fault, that's a bit of a red flag that makes me want to pause and double check.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I know a lot of people, well, I say a lot just through my circle of influencers, the people I've met. And I've met people who are in relationships where there's a feeling that it's always their fault. And what's interesting with me is, because you and I talked about this on your show, hypersensitive. I did the ACE test. And by the way, ACE, everyone, it's in the book, but you Google and find that. It's an assessment you can do about your childhood. 10 questions to identify if you went through various forms of trauma. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mind being vulnerable here. I just did the ACE test because I'm doing things now, especially because I'm in a university program where I'm learning more about my identity. I'm opening myself up, Dr. Amelia, and I never thought I would ever, this stage of my life, do that test. But, You'll know what this means. I scored 9 out of 10, and they said yours is extremely high, Tom.
Yeah, that is very high.
And I had no idea when I read it back. And everybody, I'm teasing you because I want you to get the book. I'm not going to give you all the answers. If you've come from adversity or some type of feeling of you were traumatized in your early beginnings, find this book and find that test and do it, and then go sit down with somebody and say, okay, what are the strategies and tools? So the last thing I'll say about the book is it's well laid out. I really enjoyed it. There's 3 sections: understanding gaslighting. So we just talked about that. Then there's the healing, which we won't get into in great detail today. And then what I really like is the last piece, part 3, is thriving. Tell us about what you mean by that. And how can somebody thrive coming out of or with this?
Well, I think, when you look at the fact that gaslighting erodes that sense of self and sense of kind of agency, for me, when I see someone who's thriving after, it's someone who is deeply connected to their independent emotions. I call it emotional individuation, where you are in touch with not just what you're feeling, but why, and you're willing to find safe relationships to express it. And you're willing to take, I think, at least some risk where you say things that others might not agree with, and you have your own opinions. And it doesn't mean you need to, kind of have a platform on YouTube and express your opinion, but it can also mean something as simple as, I don't like that food, or I don't like that band, or I don't want to go see that movie. Like, just feeling agency to even just not people please and not appease or fawn, the fawn response with trauma.
Yeah.
Right. And so just having your own individual thought process, being back in touch with that, because gaslighters can strip you of that.
Yeah.
And so to me, that is thriving.
Yeah. Just for the sake of the audience, and then we'll create a little viral short clip on this, just spell out fawn, what that means.
So we know fight, flight, freeze. Those are trauma responses. Fawn is a trauma response we don't often think of. And it often comes after fight, flight, freeze hasn't worked. And it looks like throwing your hands up and just saying, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm too tired. I can't keep going. And so it can look like completely not putting your opinion out there. It can appear like codependency. It can appear like just agreeing and being overly agreeable.
Yeah.
And it feels like freeze, but with more of the lack of individuality. So. No,
that's a great definition. I'm putting it on the screen again, everybody, if you're watching this back now or in the future, with Dr. Amelia Kelley, the three books on the screen, but the 2 ones we're talking about today: Gaslighting Recovery for Women, Powered by ADHD. Again, I'm a man and read these in detail. They're not just for women. There's a lot in here. I want to go back to what you said, Dr. Amelia, about exhaustion. I absolutely agree. I mean, I remember my parents divorced when I was younger, but seeing the gaslighting going on, I couldn't label it this way because I didn't understand this knowledge you sharing with us. But yeah, there were lots of times where I could see now, looking back, my mom just shutting down. And with me in my own life, I being a man, and guys, got to be tough. Don't complain. There's many times I can think of just saying I'm tired. And I used to refer to it as running to my cave, where I sort of just escape and I'm quiet and I shut down. The one thing I've always struggled with when I'm gaslighted by someone, and I've had that in my life in business by bosses, but also I've experienced it personally in family environment, is I sometimes just will run away from that. But I don't come back and stand up. I don't come back. So things don't get resolved. And they build up to the point where you feel you've lost your freedom and your identity. And this is why I think the book you've written is such a great resource for anyone, because what it did with me is inspired me to say, you have some rights here, but you got to stand up, and here's some tools. Last thing I wanted just to throw out there is it about fixing other people or working on yourself first, not fixing other people? Because I think you might agree that gaslighters, narcissists, we can't change them.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge your experience as a man being gaslit, and that highly sensitive men are more targeted by gaslighters.
Yep.
We know you're an HSP. And so, and because of toxic masculinity and ideas around masculinity is great. I don't want people to think when I say toxic masculinity is bad. It's the idea that masculinity has to be toxic. It doesn't. Masculinity can be beautiful and founded in like strength and joy and empathy. But men are definitely more likely to be gaslit when they are highly sensitive or emotional. So
yes,
let's say, for instance, you are experiencing gaslighting and you're asking, how do you stand up and should you stand up? I had said earlier that with subconscious gaslighters, people who are not necessarily intending to harm or control you, but they are doing it as a self-protection mechanism, I encourage you, put your cards out on the table, bring it to their attention and say, you know, this might seem like an en vogue term, but I believe you're gaslighting me and this is why. And sharing. The hope is that these individuals, while they may be defensive in the beginning, they will be able to take pause and inventory and do some work on themselves. And it's probably not going to go away right away, but that they're willing to admit that they have been manipulative or that they're not being open and honest.
Yes.
That's the desire. Then we have the other end of the spectrum of malicious gaslighting. And to the point of how do you stand up? First and foremost, find out or figure out you're being gaslit. And this has nothing to do with them. This is the beautiful thing. Simply knowing you're being gaslit is like pouring, I'm trying to think of like scientific terms with chemistry, like pouring a base element on an acid. I don't know, like, you know, something where it neutralizes it. It's neutralizing some of the impact of the gaslighting, because gaslighting by its very nature is meant to confuse. So if you know it's happening, that's step one. Step two, if you do not feel it's safe to bring it up to them, find a support person that you can talk to. You know, I was professionally gaslit by someone. I had shared this in my stories a while ago. You could check out the story. It was really incredulous. I didn't bring this up to it was a guy. I didn't bring this up to the professional that was gaslighting me. I got off the phone and I picked the phone up and I called my husband and I was like, you will never believe what just happened. And I talked with him about it so that I could have that touchstone with reality, someone else validating my experience. And that is a very important part of standing up for yourself when it comes to gaslighting. And that doesn't have to just be in relationships. That can be racialized gaslighting, medical gaslighting. If you feel like you're being medically gaslit, check in with someone else, find another doctor, get another opinion. Lastly, if it is safe and appropriate and possible, go report it. So if it's in a work environment, this is going to look like HR. If it's in your family structure, it's going to look like going to a trusted person. If this is in your relationship and you're trying to get out and it's abusive, this can look like going to the cops. Like things that, and we could have a whole conversation about how the legal system should be treating emotional abuse, but I digress.
Sure.
Speak it, get it out there, but probably not to the gaslighter who speaks a different emotional language.
Interesting. This is so insightful. Everyone, teaching moments right there from Dr. Amelia. I was just literally last Saturday at a TEDx event, the annual event I go to where 12 speakers appear for the first time. That's the stage I did my talk. And there was a young woman from the Indo-Fijian or Indian community, young. She was still in university. And she said, on stage, you know, her mom would not leave her father. There was gaslighting. There was abuse in the home. Finally, her mom got strong enough, but her mom used to tell her in Indian the equivalent of don't say anything because it shames the family. And I'm Canadian, but an Indo-Fijian background. This is in homes in our culture. And the work you're doing is powerful. I want to throw one more quick thought out for you to talk about, and then we'll go to a couple of things before we can wrap up with you. Your books, so your collection of books, and I'm putting it on the screen here for a reason so people can see as I talk. You've got so many books, but themes of resilience, self-discovery.
And I feel the need to like hold this one up in the corner so it can be near the other one.
All right, perfect. So we've got the other one. So but when you look at the societal trends like rising mental health awareness and advocacy for women, things you're doing, how do you see your work contributing to this global movement? So we're talking now the macro. You're making a dent and impact. How is this work contributing to that?
Well, actually, I could answer based on my next project.
Yeah, go for it.
I am in the shopping phase for an agent, so give me a call about my next book, which will integrate things around like gaslighting, self empowerment, even ADHD. I'm going to touch on, and it's called The Sensitive Revolution. And what it is about is unearthing HSPs as a national, global, the fact that we are all sensitive and we have to stop putting high sensitivity in just this little box and just helping HSPs cope. We need to help HSPs cope, but we also need to increase awareness about everyone's sensitivity, moderately sensitives and lower sensitives, in addition to the fact that if we're not all working together with our sensitivity, no one's benefiting. So I truly believe that by increasing awareness about high sensitivity, everyone understanding it, everyone knowing how to cope with it, and then not gaslighting, and also understanding the difference between high sensation seeking and ADHD. Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on about this. I'm very excited.
That's really exciting. And guess what? You just answered the last question that I was going to throw out there. We're in experiment with a new segment down the road on the show called Book Unwritten. And the question was, if you were to write the book about the future of this women's mental health and empowerment, what would it look like? And there you have it. I want to just throw one thing out, not to challenge you, but to challenge people's thinking.
I like challenge. It's okay.
Okay, good. I read so many books that are facts and figures, you know, it keeps us in that side of the brain, analytical, we get stuck. The pathway to change through neuroscience, it's very evident, is through emotion and story. And one of the things that, again, going back to my heritage, and this girl I mentioned was doing her TED Talk, when you connect generations, when you connect people together and they tell and share stories, that basically creates movement. It creates, it breaks through these paradigms. So I would like to see through your next body of work in that book some really powerful stories of real people. But more on that later. I'm going to surprise you now.
It is the plan. Lots of anecdotes will be in the book.
There it is, everyone, and we'll definitely have you here when it's ready to share what you've done. I'm going to add something to the stage here for a minute. So like a few more minutes with you. Can you spare us? Okay. So I'm just going to share the screen here. And normally there would be some big fancy music. Whoops. There it is.
Now we know what you're shopping for.
I know that's a bad look. It's actually, let me just do something different. There. All right.
We'll all know if you look sharper and more in focus next time why.
Exactly. So what you see on the screen here is 2 book reviews. So I'm revealing now international book reviews for both your books. Both of these are 5 out of 5 stars. Very quickly, the first one, A Lifetime for Emotional Freedom and Healing. This is for the Gaslighting book. Gaslighting Recovery for Women is a masterclass in resilience and recovery. Dr. Kelley's compassionate approach and expertise shine through, and she demystifies the insidious dynamics of gaslighting. What I appreciated most were the real-life examples, step-by-step exercises, that guide readers through the healing process. And the book's focus on rebuilding self-esteem, empowerment, makes it a must-read for anyone recovering from manipulation. This is more than a guide, everyone. It's a toolkit for reclaiming your power and rewriting your story. I highly recommend it. And now, applause, the second book, 5 out of 5 stars, A Revolutionary Handbook for Harnessing ADHD Strengths, reviewed by me as someone deeply committed to mental health myself and self-empowerment, just like the author, powered by ADHD. It resonated with me on a profound level. Dr. Kelley, you expertly combine research-backed insights with relatable storytelling, creating a roadmap for women to channel their neurodivergent traits into strengths. The workbook format is a standout feature, offering bite-sized exercises that cater to the ADHD brain. I love that term. What I love most is how the book shifts the narrative from coping with the ADHD to thriving with it, turning challenges into opportunities. It's more than a book. It's a call to empowerment for women everywhere. So congratulations. You heard it here first from me.
Well, thank you. You are a lovely review writer.
There you go. The word lovely, it just lights up my heart. Thank you. But I read these books, everyone, cover to cover. So go to Amazon, Goodreads, post reviews after you buy the book, AmeliaKelley.com, where you can get a hold of it. Why don't we turn it to you for the last word? Bring it all together. Anything you want to say where people can get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, they can find me at AmeliaKelley.com. Try to make it a really interactive space, which is actually under construction. It's there. All the resources there are there, but me and my it's so funny. My middle school boyfriend and I are still really close, and he's my graphics guy. And so we've been working on fine tuning it and making it an even more fun place for people. So, but I'm pretty active on Instagram. I don't know. It's a fun place to interact with people. And I love, 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 love answering questions. So if people want to hit me up and send me things that they want me to explore, and especially, so my podcast, The Sensitivity Doctor, which you've been on, you were my first solo guest, because it used to be me and Jean, and now it's just me, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the full creative control. And so many people loved your episode. They said that you were very like authentic and raw, and they just loved it. So you were a great first guest. So I appreciate that. I think all my graphics people got thoroughly like immersed with you, because we were staring at you for weeks while we were figuring out the rebrand.
Now my ego's getting a good boost. By the way, it was a wonderful experience, and I can brag that I check it out here and there because I'm about results, and it's crossed 200 views. So I'm pretty excited that it's helped in different ways. So on that note, by the way, the executive function definition in ChatGPT, I did pull that up. I just don't know if we have time for it, so I might put it in the show notes unless you want to see it. But
well, now I want to see it.
Okay, so let me just present the screen here. Let's see. Stop screen share, present, share screen, and here we go. Executive function overview. All right, can you see it there? Okay, I'm looking at a different screen because it's too small on that one, but executive function refers to a set of cognitive processes that help individuals plan for focused attention, remember instructions, juggle multiple tasks successfully. And look at this, everybody. Key components: working memory, cognitive flexibility or flexible thinking, inhibitory control, self-control. Why does it matter? It influences productivity, organization, ability to meet deadlines. Strong executive function skills help with emotional regulation, and decision-making under pressure. Weaknesses in this function can manifest as difficulty staying organized, procrastination, challenges in adapting to change. And then give some examples. Challenges with it: individuals with conditions like ADHD, traumatic brain injuries, I've been through that, or neurological disorders may experience difficulties with executive function, leading to struggles in managing daily responsibilities effectively, etc. So there it is from ChatGPT. What say you? Is it right?
I say it's from here to there.
It is.
The space in between
The whole
is how
spectrum.
we get, it's from how we get to what we want to do to what we do effectively and without harming relationships, without missing goals. So yes. So you want to do your laundry, you execute the laundry. It's all the ability to get there. So
that's great.
Yep.
Well, thank you for all your wisdom on that, everyone. I'm a firm believer that pour into you knowledge. You see in the back in my studio, the brain, the model of the brain, learn about things like executive function, ADHD, the term gaslighting. You can learn it all here. Rewatch this episode when it comes out again as a podcast and a video premiere. But most importantly, get a hold of Dr. Amelia Kelley and strike up a conversation. There's lots more there to learn. Always great having you here, Dr. Amelia. We'll see you again when new things come.
Absolutely.
All right. And everybody, find that true purpose like you've heard here from Dr. Amelia, and live with passion, but live the life that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you again next week on The Quiet Warrior Show. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, we're just going to take her offline here, ending the stream.
Bye, everyone.